The Johnson route began here near Empire, just about 4 miles east of Carson City, at the bend of the river.
People came through here on the Carson route, and when they reached this point, they had the choice of going on the Carson route, which took them south through Carson Valley and over Carson Pass into Placerville, or to take this new route to Placerville, a shorter distance.
When we reached Eagle Station, this is one of the key points on the route and one of the keys in determining where the Johnson Cutoff actually went. It took us quite a while to find it, but we were able to find some information that was put together by the state archivist, Guy Rocha, and he identified the location as being just across the street here on the far corner. There's a monument where we're standing. It was placed here because there was no development here at the time. We couldn't put the monument in the front yard of the existing house. But this locates Eagle Station. It was a nice location. There was water here. People stopped to rest and get advice on the route, and then they'd head on up Kings Canyon. Now we've reached the top of the Kings Canyon summit, and it's interesting because it doesn't seem like there's any reason to go over this pass. It seemed like it'd be more sensible for Johnson to have taken folks further down the valley to Clear Creek and gone up a water grade route, and that's the first impression most people have, including me. But then when you take a look at it from the point of view of Johnson, who was trying to build a quick road without doing much development, you find there are palisades in the bottom of Clear Creek that would have made building a wagon road quite difficult. Also, Johnson was anxious to get people on the road and committed to his road to Placerville, so the sooner that he could divert them from the Carson Trail and get them over a ridge so they didn't want to go back, the better off he was. If they knew what was ahead of them, they probably would have turned around and gone back and gone through Genoa and stayed on the Carson Trail. This summit is also interesting, the Kings Canyon summit, because it plays an important role in determining where Twain had his camp at Lake Tahoe. As you recall, Mark Twain, then known, of course, as Samuel Clemens, had gone on a trip to Lake Tahoe to establish a timber claim. He describes this trip in Roughing It, including the fact that he accidentally started a forest fire, which was of interest to everybody, and it was of interest to me, and I always wanted to know where this occurred and got blank looks from everybody. Twain clearly described going over a summit 1,000 miles high and another one 4,000 miles high, and so the question of where's that second summit? And I said, I have the answer. I've been working on the Johnson Cutoff, and there is a second summit. And with that, I started to then take a little closer look at where Twain went. If he did indeed use the Johnson route, then he would have gone over this summit. That accounts for that. You couldn't see the lake from the first summit, nor could you see the lake from the second summit at the top of Spooner. And then he would have dropped down to the lake and found the skiff left by the brigade boys. These were the hangers-on with Governor Nye, and they were developing a timber claim of their own just north of Glenbrook. And Twain says he rode 3 miles north and borrowed some provisions from the cache. He mentioned that he was 3 miles from a sawmill on the lake. Well, the only sawmill at the time was the Prey sawmill at Glenbrook. And then after camping at the brigade cache, he went an additional 3 miles. Well, that took him north of the claim by the brigade group to the vicinity of Thunderbird Lodge. Then he described going back 6 miles to the only house on the lake at the time, which again would have been Glenbrook. And he describes a boulder field, and he describes the ridge that the fire burned over that he accidentally started. And with these clues, taken with the Johnson Cutoff, which provided a key clue, we were able to pinpoint his camp as being near the Thunderbird Lodge that Wattell had on the lake, and it's just south of Sand Harbor. And we feel like that we had it pretty well isolated, but there was one additional little bit of information that was very helpful, and that was a letter that Twain wrote home to his mother and sister. And in that letter he describes using a huge granite boulder as his dining room table, a flat-top granite boulder. And it just happened to be fortunate enough to find it during a low water period and actually identify it. And I believe very strongly that that was indeed the granite table that he's describing. So we feel that we've pinpointed his location. And the Johnson Cutoff was a key element in pinning that down.